What is up, YouTube? It's your boy Alex here from Alex CFE, and today we have another video. So today we're going to be going over some results, something that I don't typically do, but I actually really found this past BRO entertaining. I actually watched it a lot more than I previously kind of have in the past. So first and foremost, kudos to everybody on the broadcast team. It was really smooth for the most part. Like, I really didn't see any hiccups. Obviously there were some, little things during the games, but that's just, playing the card fight in general. Like, mistakes do happen and whatnot, but overall excellent casting, production quality was great, so really did enjoy it. But without further ado, let's hop into some results, and then at the end I'm going to go over what I believe to be my personal favorite decks that I kind of saw over the weekend, just some interesting picks overall. So it's not all just fish meta, fish and dragon fireboy, so it is pretty cool. But first and foremost, over here we do have BRO, and I have this is coming from Sage. If you don't follow him on Twitter, I'm going to link him down below. You have to be following him. He just has some of the hottest takes, some of the best content and things like this over here, and we will get into fuzzy stuff as well. But this kind of gives you a snapshot of all of the entrants, which I found pretty interesting, that Gandiva and Willista both had pretty much almost the same, off by 5 there. The runner-up really was Jet, and I wasn't sure what the third pick would kind of be, and I think I was surprised not to see more what was it, Messiah, because I kind of rate Messiah a little bit higher, I guess, in the meta right now, but we really didn't see any of that in, I don't think, anywhere. Yeah, it might have been in the other category over here, but definitely did not have a large representation. So a couple players that I've been talking to have said that, like, Jet is actually one of the best decks right now, if not the best deck. I think it's all very opinionated. We have limited results in this game, which I think this is like a great tournament to kind of look at and like see some differing results in general. Just something a little, any more data sources I feel like is always a great thing. So to have this tournament run and right before the BCS season, you have the ability to kind of look into the meta, what it's shaping up to be, and see if yes, your read on it is correct, this is what it is, or did things kind of change, did they like become a little bit different. So over here we see that Gandiva is clearly the most represented deck, followed by Willista, into Jet, and then in fourth actually Youthberg. I thought Youthberg would kind of fall off. Zorga, I'm not surprised, a couple people do want to play that. I think it's actually a really good deck, just very hard to pilot. You have to be a very good player to kind of do that. So Ava's still there, and Minerva and whatnot still kind of floating around. But then we converted actually to the top 8, and we see 2 Gandiva, 2 Zorga, 1 Willista, 1 Chronojet, 1 Hexorb, 1 Lauren roll. So it actually is pretty diverse. And again, thank you very much, Fuzzy Paradox, for putting this together. The visual for this is always killer. Everybody in the community, if you're not following him, again, just another person you have to be following. So 100% go do it. I will link him down in the description below. But no mistake, like, obviously some Gandivas are going to slip in, but to see the fact that 32, out of 32 only 2 of them converted is actually kind of crazy. Whereas what was there was like 5 Zorga or something like that, 7 Zorga. I mean, 2 of them got in, so that's like a much higher conversion rate. Surprised to see a little bit of Willista. We see the Jet sneak in. Hexorb was actually good, and I think Lauren roll was really the big surprise here. So hopping right into it, I'm going to go into the deck lists themselves, but these were the top 4. We're going to go over these in just a second. But this was a Gandiva list and Willista list, top 4, so I thought that was actually really cool. This is probably my favorite grouping of results in general, but again, Chronojet being number 1, I think the way this player kind of built his deck is correct. I like the kind of style and just the idea, now that Swirler's kind of banned out in it, where the direction that they took the deck I think is the correct direction. But it's really cool to see the actual 2 Zorgas out of 7 kind of convert to top 4 in general. So congrats to all of these players over here. And the Lauren coming all the way to 3rd. I watched these games on stream. It was crazy. It was super cool. Sentinel Restrict is really solid, and I think that this was almost validating, because I've been playing with my deck for a bit and I'm like, wow, Sentinel Restrict is pretty strong. Anything that gives you an extra drive is always really good. So I thought this was pretty decent, and it's cool to see this kind of rogue its way into that top 4. So big kudos to Paris over here. Looking at the Chronojet list, I think that it is adapted to the current meta very well. What are Chronojet's strengths? Really just playing for the late game, making sure that you can draw out and make sure you survive, to make sure that your power is truly live at the late game, and I think this build does that almost perfectly, as good as it's going to get over here. You're putting stuff into Soul with the Crucial Dragon right there. Also the Guard Restrict also is pretty cool. I'm not sure exactly which one they use it for. I know this is like running around at that one of. This is a very popular tech at the moment. We see only 3 copies of the Interceptor, the how do you say this? Argandia. I've seen some lists with 4, but I don't think 3 is that bad. And we have the 4 Gungram, so you can draw off of that. You can also Soul Charge, as well as the starter deck grade 1 for both Jejuled and the, what was this one over here for? God, I forgot the name of it, but oh my god, I can't believe I forgot. I think Unica. I think that's the Unica grade. No, that's not it. I forgot the grade 1 with trial deck I think this came with. But anyway, Soul Charging. Basically just, tossing stuff into Soul is super important. As well as the 4 on hit guy over here, this Argon. So or just when it boosts, I'm sorry. Yeah, when the stack, no, yeah, on hit. I don't know what I'm talking about here. It's really late. It's after midnight, so give me a little credit here. But yeah, no, this is the correct way. Just spam, get extra defense through these guys over here, get the card draw through the gun room, and honestly, like, play for the late game, because you know, second stride, you go into your Chrono Jet, your other Chrono Dragon next stage. It's just, I think, the proper way to play at this point. So I really do like this list. I'm not surprised that it actually ended up winning in the right hands. This is a potent deck. Over here with Zorga too, I'm actually surprised both of these I think were blue Zorga. Pretty cool to kind of see it though. I think in most scenarios, blue Zorga is turning out to be a little bit more consistent. Red Zorga might have a higher ceiling, but I think that this might be actually the correct way to do it, because Alchemagic is just pretty much free in this over here. But we see a good smattering of like different, I guess I can't really lock down what this deck wants to do exactly. I think it wants to bulk out, just gain its units, you know, resources. It has a little bit of everything going on over here. We don't see any of the triple drive order. This is a pretty powerful defensive order. Get some stuff back as well through this one. So interesting choices, very consistent. You know, the 4 of the what is it, the Shadow Cloak right here, 4 obviously of the Roaming Prison Dragon. Nothing too out of the norm. Yeah, out of the norm. You know, fronts I think is correct as well. So it's cool to see the Forbidal over here getting that grade 3. I guess you're guaranteeing the Prison Dragon, which is pretty cool. You know, you could sack it then, get it off, do whatever you want. So there's probably a ton of different things going on in this deck that I'm not really picking up on, but just super consistent, very standard stuff overall. Very nice. The Laurel deck, again, is almost pretty standard from what we've seen. We do get the new Festival Collection support over here. Look at the top card, you know, search a little bit deeper for the Lauren roll itself, making sure that you get the song card over here, putting a card back into the soul for it. Yeah, really nothing too crazy. Got the counter charger, Eureka for that early pressure. See that they're prioritizing, I think, which is correct, the front triggers over here as well. The extra crit on your Vanguard is pretty important. I think this is the right play, especially with being able to kind of go into either of the Lauren rolls that you really want to and like dress back and forth. I feel like adding the correct one back to your hand if you hit that blue OT is pretty impactful, and you're really playing through your Vanguard, not through the rear guards. I see a lot of people too also prioritizing the Evergreen transfer. I think it's pretty interesting. Like the Regalius pieces haven't been 100% settled. It really comes down to player choice, which I think is pretty cool overall. So moving on lastly over here then to the last Zorga list. Now, I think this one's a little bit more interesting just because we see there's almost the same amount of, or almost the same orders in general. Still blue Zorga, 1 extra Persona Ride, which is pretty interesting. But we see they did cut down on the multi-attacker, which I think pretty much is correct. We see at this point they are running the multi-attacker, which I think is correct also for the OT. So, you know, potential a lot of multi-attack, but 2 of these over here, which is nice, giving the extra 5k to the front row. But the real zinger here is the Fine Drink of Abolishment for Sin. So you get to draw a card and you basically get 5k for everything. I think it's a different order card. Each card has a different name in your drop zone and bind zone in total. Yeah, so essentially you're just like becoming a little bit bulkier. Like this, I feel like Zorga wants to close out quick, but at the same time, in this meta right now, it's not going to do that great if your opponents kind of go off with Gandiva, with Willista, things of that nature. So this might actually get us to a point where like we've kind of decked in, we've kind of gotten things to the point where like, yeah, well, let's just go to town with Mask Zorga and just, I guess, win in general. So this is a solid card and really interesting to see. Moving on over here, this is the EU, all the entrants over here, the overall top 16 and then into the top 8. Really interesting to see just Willista now kind of dominate, and we don't see any Gandiva in the top 8 right here. So that is, I think, the biggest shock for me. I feel like we see, yeah, 27 Gandivas entered, top 16, 3 of them converted in. So I'm not seeing tons of great like conversion rates. I feel like a lot of players are picking this deck up expecting it to be just like the greatest thing ever, and just it's not panning out that way really. So Ballista is still heavily represented. Again, same thing, you know, I feel like anybody's gonna flock to the best deck. Only a couple people can convert, so it is what it is at that point. But yeah, 19 for Jet, that is a whole lot. I think Chrono Jet is solidifying itself as like that in the top 3 kind of decks, and I think after 2 regions showing this, it is pretty clear. Zorga also a lot more representation, 5 more or 6 more I think in this one, and then also we are seeing Youthberg and, you know, kind of falling off from there. So the Youthbergs, again, I guess still pretty popular. Game is what it is. So let's hop into some deck lists over here. Let's just look at the EU, what was it, the top 8? Yeah, so 3 of the Willista, 2 Chrono Jet, 1 Zorga, 1 Messiah, 1 Ava. Ava's interesting. I don't think we saw that really anywhere else. I feel like it is a little bit, it's still very consistent. It's just a little bit too slow for this meta at the moment. what I really liked was the Messiah here, and I think that actually, yeah, looking at the top 4, it did convert and it actually got second place. So credit to Hikawa for doing that. I don't think anybody else topped with Messiah throughout the whole event, and I think it's actually a very good deck. I think it's a little bit underrated right now. Like, you can play this pretty much out of the box and like honestly have a chance against absolutely any deck in the meta. So very cool to see the Chrono Jet pop up again, and Willista I think is probably the best deck. It's just the most consistent overall. Gandiva has its ups and downs. It's still insane, but I think Willista probably is the best. But let's take a look at this over here. We know Willista, what it looks like and stuff. I'm not really going to go over that. I'm kind of sick of seeing fish at this point, but we see this is pretty much ripped out of the box with the exception of 2 Makane over here, as well as I think they dropped one of these to add an additional one, dropped one of these also, but we have the 4 crits added as well as the draw triggers, and it's just a very standard thing. This is nothing really crazy to kind of go on about, nothing really to talk about. You know the game plan: lock, multi-attack, draw a lot, just survive to late game. And again, like Chrono Jet, this kind of naturally I feel like has more ability to kind of passively go into the late game without committing quite as much. So very cool to see that top. Congrats again to that player. And then just taking a look at the Chrono Jet deck, I think this one's a little bit different. We see they popped Zargon down a little bit, 3 instead of the 4, but again, defensive guy over here, that's going to be at a 4 of. We don't see as many unique soul charging opportunities as we did in the other one. I think he has more of the GGs, where the other guy didn't prioritize that. We do see the 1 Falcate performer, which is something kind of reminiscent of last format, and I don't think it's incorrect or anything like that, but I do think the other jet lists, if I had to pick one, I would try this one out first, see how it kind of goes. It seems interesting, but overall this is still a little bit more standard and still a good deck. I really think, kudos to this player getting the top 4. Really nice job overall. For NA, it definitely was a little bit more what I expected. So 38 Gantivas over here, 36 Willistas. Again, Chrono Jet. I think Chrono Jet has really solidified itself as that 3rd best deck, and definitely, like, if you want to rush people down, like, this is, I know we survived the late game, but like, so long as you get to your second stride, I feel like you have the potential to end against absolutely any matchup you want, and you have a good chance of getting to that point in the game, especially if you went first. So actually in that matchup you kind of want to go second, but you have a good shot to get to your second stride is what I'm saying. But a lot of Zorga over here, as well as, yeah, so for NA, I guess Messiah players finally woke up and came out, but we see Hexorb, PBO, Youthbrick actually dropped down to 6 over here. Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. NA players playing the PBO, so let's go check it out over here. And then the top 8, 5 of them converted with Ballista, 2 Gandiva, 1 Zorga, so not quite as diverse, but I think this really is the true capture of the meta. And if I was going to say something for like the BCS season, this is really like what I'm perceiving to be, for the first 2 at least, until we get the next set. I think it's 2 that we have until we get like set 11 or whatever it is. This is pretty much the clear picture. Like, Willista is the best deck, and Diva's probably second. Zorga can be 3rd. It has the potential to be 3rd, and yeah, just, top 4 fish and then one Dragon Boy. So not too crazy over here, but I did want to kind of end this video with saying, just showing a couple of decks that I think were really interesting, and we have to kind of break this, like, I guess, hive mind almost mindset. I feel like Vanguard is a very solid game in general, but you have the ability to become a little bit different, to become unique, and just build the way you want. And I think a lot of these players kind of embody that. So this was a list, I forgot where it was, what region, but a top 8. I think he got top 8 with Hexorb. I actually really like this list. This is pretty standard, but just wanted to showcase this because it's not super common. Just 4 of the the Aquamarines, 4 of the Spiral Cuties, which I think is pretty standard. The Moth is a good play. I definitely think it's easy to just get stuff on board, and, like, numbers are numbers, just very easy to kind of have that. The 1 or the 2 of these over here for the draw power, I feel like is good for the early game. 4 of these is just too much with the counterblast, but just another ability to rig the top of your deck. 4 of these, like, it's very standard in general. I feel like blue is correct as well. Just getting another crit is absolutely mind-blowing in this deck. And then interestingly enough, I think they chose to run the 2-and-2 split of the multi-attacker as well as the critical kind of heal trigger. So interesting. I don't know. I think that it was, not a very fairly common deck. So just wanted to showcase that there. My buddy Jake actually was on stream, I think, twice. So congrats, Jake. I think you came top. I think you got like 11th place in NA, or is it EU? I forget. I think it was EU actually. Yeah, I saw your match against Nuno over there, but 2 of these Emelines are actually mine in his list physically. But yeah, PBO. This kid's been on PBO forever. He's been tearing stuff up, like, at regionally. He's been going. He won what was it, BCS no BSF Toronto this year, and he's really preparing big time. So I think this was a really fun pick to go into BRO with, and Jake just rocked it. He did his thing, and I think coming into top 16 at a major region is pretty good overall. So we see that he does prioritize the 3 draws over the fronts. I think it's probably correct. You need to hand size. There's like not a lot of draw in this deck, even though you do exude a ton of pressure. Oddly enough, there's just 1 extra outside the ride line of the Blaster Dark, just because you can keep on getting stuff back. 4 of the other 2 promos, 3 and 3 over there, 4 technically of this guy. But yeah, again, early rush, just beat down, get your opponent whittled as fast as you can, just close out with PBO. And like, if you want a masterclass on it, Jake, go ahead, explain down below. If you maybe I'll profile this on the channel as well. But just a super fun deck, and it's really cool to see him play it. So not very common. And then lastly, I think this was really the cherry on top, the icing on the cake. This was an amazing list. I saw Chris actually tweeted this out. I don't know the deck code and stuff like that. I just got the image. But this is Personalist Grade 3 Bruce, and the whole idea with this is you just play Swirler. Everything else is really going for the soul charge. So the pony, this guy over here, he gives himself power. I think he soul charges 1 or 2. You get the guard restrict out of these guys right over here. So the idea is that you're swinging you're swinging 5 times. 2 of them have guard restrict. You're swinging ideally with the swirlers right there. If not, these other guys make power. Everything else soul charges. You're basically finding them almost every turn because of the Derek over here. So extremely well thought out. You're still running the big soul charger, the full back, whatever it's called. I forgot the name of it off the top of my head, but it's really insane to see this. This was 4-1 at a certain point, and I just thought it deserved like a shout out. I don't know how it finished or anything like that. Clearly it didn't convert to the top 8, but for somebody to roll up with this is really like a homebrewed kind of like feel good deck, and to see them kind of do it that it just was really cool in my opinion. So I wanted to bring this to your attention if you're a Bruce player. Again, outside the swirlers, the majority of this deck is like pennies, so very good investment if you have these cards laying down. Maybe toss this list together, try it for yourself. But that about wraps it up for BRO. Again, thank you, a huge shout out to Sage and to Fuzzy Paradox for providing those pie charts as well as the visuals for those results, and I really enjoyed the BRO this year. I don't know about you, so definitely looking forward to the BCS season. Maybe I'll do a couple more of these depending on how this video does. Let me know down below if you guys want to see any more videos like this. Again, if you enjoyed the content, make sure to leave a like on the video, possibly consider subscribing to the channel. Thank you in advance. This is Alex from Alex CFE signing out.